Welcome to Letters from New Zealand. Major General Sir Harry Smith had a very ordinary English name, but he was an extraordinary person. In India, in 1846, he won a famous victory for the East India Company against the Sikh Empire. He was wary of the fierce Sikh warriors who had in previous battles inflicted heavy casualties on the British and their allies, so he planned his strategies well. The Sikh army included huge cannons dragged onto the battlefield by large teams of bullocks and elephants. The Sikh commander was General Rajur Singh, with 12,000 men and 75 cannons. The LEC army at Ayawal numbered around 10,000 men and included Sepoy, Indian, and Gurkha, Nepalese infantry, and 25 cannons. The battlefield was a wide plain with some defensive trenches dug by the Sikhs and supported with cannon. Both sides had cavalry on its wings. General Smith carefully noted the Sutlej River about 1 mile behind it. After the customary 30 minutes exchange of cannon fire, Smith concentrated his infantry to attack the right side of the battlefield. The Sikh artillery initially continued to fire into the advancing EIC infantry, causing heavy casualties, but discipline held, and slowly the British gained the upper hand. Smith then moved his artillery and cavalry forward. The Sikh general then left the battlefield, leaving his subordinates to reorganize themselves. They formed their traditional defensive equilateral triangles. The 16th Lancers charged, found gaps, and exploited them. The EIC cavalry, infantry, and artillery combined to smash the second line of defence and overwhelm the Sikhs trying to regroup. The Sikhs abandoned their cannon and fled across the river using whatever boats they could find under fierce fire. An aging Duke of Wellington described the battle as perfect in the sense that all units were deployed in union and casualties were light, 151 dead and 413 wounded. Now a Lieutenant General, Smith was further rewarded with a KCB, Governor and High Commissioner of the Cape Colony. He had mixed success at the colony he had visited previously and had noted the many problems. His attempts to placate the Boers, despite heavy appropriation of lands, won him some respect among the locals. The town Ladysmith was named after his wife and would become famous for resisting a Boer siege later in the century. A challenge of a completely different nature occurred when 3 ships sailed from England to the Cape. On board were mostly, but not all, Irish political prisoners and their families. The locals were having none of it. Warned of their arrival, they refused to allow the ship to dock and the passengers to disembark. This situation had a similarity 150 years later, when an Australian cabinet minister claimed that expelling non-Australian repeat offenders, mainly New Zealanders, was taking out the trash. Smith did what any good general would do and kicked the problem upstairs. But in the coming long months, the Smiths spent their own money supplying the crew and passengers with food and water. One can only imagine the conditions aboard for the families. Finally, orders arrived that the ships would sail on to Australia, where else, and some on to other countries. On board those ships were a future State Lieutenant Governor of Australia, a High Court judge, 2 Confederate Army generals and 1 Union general, and a Canadian Provincial Lieutenant Governor General. The message is clear. Everyone, especially teachers, should continue to strive and avoid having talent pass them by. Thank you for watching. Please tick the subscribe thing below and keep in good health.